Hello Thomas fans, hope you're having a wonderful day and welcome once again. So today I'm going to do another ranking video. Sort of. Recently I saw Wingy Media do a video where he built his perfect season of Doctor Who, and I thought I've got to do this with Thomas and friends, and I'm going to let you guys try this yourself. So let me explain how this would work. You are allowed to make a 26 episode series filled with your favourite episodes of the show. Although you can do either 20 episodes like season 10 and 20, or just 20 episodes like the Miller era. The rules are that the episode number has to remain the same, so you can't have Paint Pots and Queens as last episode, let's say, or Thomas and Gordon as episode 6 or something. Also, if you include one episode from a 2 or 3 parter story, you'll have to include the other parts. If you really like Edward Gordon and Henry and want to include it in your list, you will have to include the sad story of Henry as well. Everybody got that? Good. So, let us start off with episode 1 and episode 2. You already know what it is. Yep, it's Granpuff and Sleeping Beauty. Now, for a while, I was actually not thinking of choosing these episodes, because as I said before, I'm not a big fan of Sleeping Beauty, because of the way they recap the first episode, and also the montages of when they search for Duke. But you can overlook all those problems when talking about Granpuff. The 3 little edges are so memorable, even if we only have a few minutes to get to know them. But the big winner here is, of course, the premise. This episode was the sign that the show was visiting new places, both bright and dark. The moment we watch Duke's shed being hidden by those trees and bushes is so distressing, it gives you a sense of helplessness. Also, I'm wondering, why did none of the parents complain about this episode when they give the sad story of Henry so much shtick? Anyway, these 2 episodes kick off season 4 perfectly, and they'll probably never be matched. Now on to episode 3, and I'm sure this is going to be the first of many controversial choices in this video, and it's Henry Gets the Express. Yep, I got with a CGI episode for my perfect series. But let's face it, any episode surrounding Henry nowadays is bound to get my attention. I don't know why, but we just love to see Gordon get humiliated, don't we? Even though Henry's name's in the title, this is definitely more of a Gordon episode, in my view at least. It's just fun to see 2 of our main characters do opposite jobs and their reactions to it. Henry's back to doing a job he deserves more often, and Gordon just cracks me up throughout. At episode 4, we've got Gordon and the Famous Visitor. The ThomasSeby story always stuck with me when my parents read the Railway series to me, and when it's brought to life for the TV series, it looks even better than I imagined it. The build up to Gordon losing his dome is great, the one-liners are good, and the ending always makes me chuckle. Half of you feels like Gordon deserves it, but the other half just can't help but feel sorry for him, and that's partly the reason why I love the character so much. He's a jerk at times, but he's our jerk. Episode 5 was probably the easiest to pick on this list, and it goes to my current favourite episode of all time, Old Iron. I should just copy and paste everything I said in my season 2 video, because there is absolutely nothing more I could add to it. The interaction between the characters is good, the build up to the chase is great, and as for the chase itself, wow. So exciting. This was a massive step forward from the slightly slower paced season 1. It's a perfect way to almost complete Edward's story of being repaired. This episode deserves way more support than it currently gets. And now for another CGI episode at number 6, and it's PA problems. Same as Henry Gets the Express, it's all down to how much it makes me laugh. I am so glad they decided to make the Bat Controller the comic relief of the current series, because we've had so many hilarious moments with him recently, and I certainly hope there's more to come. Edward and Reg are good supporting characters, and the premise of chaos ensuing on the railway because of a rubbish PA system is just really funny. For episode 7, the first season 5 story that I've chosen, By George. If Terence the Tractor can make a successful comeback story, then surely George the Steamroller can. I still can't believe we only got 3 episodes of him speaking, because he made such an impact. And speaking of impacts, well, you guys already know how much I love the moment Gordon hits the truck and it obliterates as it hits the ground. We can't help but laugh at George's catchphrase. It's like Dale Boy saying, "This time next year we'll be millionaires." He can say it as much as he wants, but he's never going to succeed in destroying the rails, let's face it. It's only right that he gets punished for causing the 2 incident. I just love the fact that we don't find out entirely what George decided to do when he served his punishment. Was he just as rude, or did he change his ways? Episode 8, another season 4 story, Trucks. Always loved the cool crashes in Thomas, always will. We begin and end with some great interaction between Rusty and Harold, which was a great way of establishing Rusty's character. It's nice to see that Sir Handel hasn't changed and still causes trouble for others. The crash is epic, and it's a good change to see an engine get damaged that takes a while to be fixed, even if it does happen to my favourite narrow gauge engine. For episode 9, it is of course Henry's Forest, and the more I watch this episode, the closer it gets to being my favourite Henry episode of all time. I think the 5-year gap between seasons 2 and 3 definitely helped David miss it. It gave him more time to build some outstanding sets for the upcoming series, and he put more than enough effort into the Forest set. In fact, I wonder if that was why they wrote that episode in the first place, so we could admire David's hard work. Another huge bonus this episode has is how sad they make it when the Forest is damaged. After ages of Henry being rather boastful and impolite, we get a chance to see Henry at his lowest point. This was a massive turning point for his character, and like the Flying Kipper, my feelings for Henry changed and he instantly became one of my favourites. The rather unrealistic prospect of Henry being allowed to stop wherever he wants shouldn't ruin the whole episode. There are so many good things that completely overlook that. For episode 10, I've gone with Toby and the Flood, and once again I have very little to add to my original opinion of this one. I would love it if someone made a movie out of this story because they made it like a disaster movie. The sets, music, lighting, voices, visual effects, sound effects, everything. While the show is in CGI, I don't think they'll ever manage to leave me on the edge of my seat as much as they did with Toby and the Flood. At episode 11, it's Haunted Henry. I hated this episode as a toddler. Too dark, too eerie, too everything. I love it now, and I do so for the reasons I hated it previously. If this was meant to be the episode that makes Henry more nervous and sensitive, I would be satisfied, because who on earth wouldn't be traumatised by nearly seeing a ghost at a place like this? An extra part of this episode that sends shivers down my spine is the delivery by both of the narrators when the driver sees all the mysterious objects. Haunted Henry has all the ingredients of a thriller movie, and nearly 2 decades later, this 5-minute adventure still gives me chills. I've gone with my current favourite CGI episode for episode 12, the fastest red engine on Sodor. I'll start off by saying this episode has one of the funniest moments in the series.
Don't forget that time your wooden brake box caught fire.
Yes, I remember all that.
Although there are some moments where I just can't stand James, this episode includes all the things I love about the character. Laugh out loud moments and just desserts. I'm so glad they let Rob Rackshaw voice James in both English dubs because he has so far nailed it in both versions. He's at his absolute best in this episode. Whether he's screaming at the top of his lungs or delivering a one-liner, he does it to perfection. I always laugh at how they show the crash from 3 different angles. It's a bit of a random moment, but the CGI era is full of those. It's another of those rare gems from the recent years of toys. At episode 13, it's Stepney Gets Lost. Another episode that made me feel uneasy when I was younger, and you can probably tell why. I don't think today's producers of the show would be brave enough to show the audience the scrapyard because this place is steam engine hell. Stepney is a character that is known for his confidence and pride, but in this episode, his memories from being on that siding on the other railway come flooding back, and he is in a terribly vulnerable position. You guys know how much I love how Arian Burst are portraying this story, so I won't go over that again. And I love how the driver is the one making a mistake for a change, and not the engine. Definitely in the top 5 darkest episodes of the show, and so far unmatched. Next up, I've gone with A Close Shave. Okay, yes, this is technically the 3rd and final part of the Diesel vs. Doc story, but I saw this episode before the other 2 and understood pretty much everything that had happened before, so I think it's fine on its own. The chase and crash take up most of the episode, and they are definitely the highlights. Even though we don't see Duck get proper justice for Diesel's lies, I still prefer the route they did take with a fun, exciting story rather than a confrontational ending. Following this, episode 15, I've chosen Rusty to the Rescue. Sure, it's unrealistic, sure, it's not what Audrey wanted, but it's an adventure. Why is that a bad thing? Now that we've seen Rusty do his normal job of looking after the line, we get the chance to see him be a different kind of hero as he searches for a new engine at a place that most engines wouldn't consider travelling to. Stepney's introduction is quite brief but still enjoyable, and it's another story that would work really well as a movie. For episode 16, I've gone with Break. While it's a shame that we never got to see the missing coach as an episode, this was still a really good introduction to Donald and Douglas. By the end of this story, we know that while these 2 are characters not to be messed with, they do mean well. and we know it would be sad if one of them was sent away in the end. The spiteful Breakman made for a great villain, and while it was great to see him get destroyed in the end, I kind of wish we'd seen more of him. Oh well. This episode also includes my favourite version of the breakdown theme, which some of you might have noticed I have used quite a lot in my projects. Anyway, Breakman has so many good things to remember. Great new characters, great story, and a fantastic villain. At episode 17, I've gone with my first season 6 episode on the list, Gordon Takes a Tumble. If someone pointed a gun at my head and said I could only watch season 6 or 7 for the rest of my life, I would always pick 6 because everything is so much more eventful. Gordon Takes a Tumble is one of those great eventful stories. We get to see Gordon pull trucks for the first time in years. We get to see him interact with this newly established character called Salty, and we get one of the best crashes in the series so far. Once again, we see Gordon get humiliated, and once again, we feel sorry for him. I know I said I didn't like how Gordon has been handled in recent years, and that's because we need more episodes like this. Now for episode 18, and I've chosen Last Train for Christmas. Connor is another really good character we've been introduced to in recent years, because although he is a fast engine, he is really sensitive and thoughtful as well. The CGI era of the show really does deliver when it comes to the adventurous episodes. We are counting on our heroes to help everyone get home in time for Christmas, and it really shows the dedication everyone puts into their work that you can't help but appreciate. Episode 19 was another very easy story to pick, and it is of course The Flying Gipper. It's funny how people rank this episode so highly considering how straightforward it is, and let me tell you, if it wasn't for how much effort they put into the sets, music and crash, this would be a really forgettable episode. We sit back and enjoy watching Henry take the important train, but then we lean forward onto the edge of our seats when we realise Henry is going to have an accident. I challenge someone to make this story better than they did it. In fact, don't. That was rhetorical. They put so much effort into this story that it is the highlight of season 1, in my view at least. That is why, sadly, it is the only episode from season 1 on this list. Sorry everyone. For episode 20, I've gone with Toad Stands By, another episode that I loved from the start. Same as the spiteful Breakman, Scruffy was a great one-off villain, and the moments he is pulled apart always make me laugh. The more times you watch the story, the more you wonder how Toad came up with the idea of pulling the lead of the trucks apart. I think someone's hiding something. Even though we had to wait a full season for Oliver to get revenge on the trucks, it still wraps things up perfectly. And now for episode 21. And let me first say that I was very, very close to going with Escape. But the more I thought about it, the more my mind kept coming back to the choice I eventually made. And that is Henry in the Dark. I know I'm committing huge sacrilege by choosing a CGI episode over one of the best season 3 episodes. But that's just the way my mind works. If I have to choose between an episode that's an adventure and an episode that makes me laugh throughout, I'm always going to go with the funnier story. Everyone's reaction to seeing Henry glowing in the dark is really funny, and it's good to see Henry, rather than being scared, actually doing the scaring. I actually watched this episode for the first time out of boredom, but by the end, I was so glad I chose to watch it. Next up, we have another season 6 story, Thomas the Jet Engine. And once again, I don't give a damn if this episode is unrealistic. It's fun, and we should always be allowed to experience fun in our daily lives. The chase is so exciting, and I still love the jokes and one-liners they included, which always improve an episode. The jet engine might have only been made for a toy, but at least it's a one-off piece of rolling stock that actually makes the episode better. This is a lot of people's favourite from season 6, and I can certainly see why. Episode 23, probably not a huge surprise to you guys. Yep, it's Busy Going Backwards. My favourite season 5 episode by the slimmest of margins. I always look forward to this one when I watch my season 5 VHS, and probably always will. Toad the Brave Band is looking pretty safe as my third favourite character in the show because of the brilliant episodes we've had with him, old and new. They didn't need to make a new version of the William Tell overture for this one, but they did, and that's why it always got me excited. Once again, plenty of really funny moments with Gordon and James. Both of the English dubs are really good as well, which is quite rare, you must admit. I just love the fact that this episode is only about a runaway train, but when you fit Toad into the equation, it becomes a really clever story, and they make it way more dramatic than it probably should be as well. It's safe to say, Busy Going Backwards was definitely a step forward for Toad, if you'll pardon the pun. Okay, episode 24. This was, without a doubt, the most difficult to choose, because there have been so many good ones. Ghost Train, Duncan Gets Spooked, Heroes, but I decided to go with Fish from Season 4. I think we can all agree that Christopher Audrey wasn't quite as good at writing stories as his father was, but there are some that do feel like they were written by Wilbert. Fish is definitely one of them. Like Old Iron, I think this one's very, very underrated. The night sequence and music is lovely as always, the atmosphere is great, and what about the crash? It's another of those accidents that both look and sound epic, and also I like how the scene is played out. They're good at building it up as well as finishing it off. Even though it ends on a silly, somber note, it's still a really good one-off in terms of how it isn't related to any other episodes. I'd love to know what people think of this one because no one seems to want to talk about it, and that baffles me to no end. Next up, here it is, Rusty and the Boulder. It's weird how this episode was aired before Snow, but it's placed after the episode on the DVD release. Once again, I love the way it feels like a disaster movie as we listen to that opening sentence by the narrator, alongside the really chilling theme tune for Boulder. And I also love that we don't find out the truth about him. Is he alive, or is it Rusty's imagination? We probably won't find out, and I'm glad of that. Another thing I like is there isn't a lot of music when Boulder starts rolling, which is quite normal for a disaster film, so we can just admire the sound effects they used. They really didn't need to make the sheds explode and Boulder crash into it, but they still did, and produced one of the most unbelievable moments in the series. It might not be the best character-driven story in the series, but there are so many other things to absolutely adore about it. And finally, episode 26, It's Snow. And this was another difficult one to pick because Thomas really doesn't do well with finales, in my opinion at least. I know I said Snow is episode 25 of this season on the DVD release, but I think I still would have picked these two whatever order they were in. The snowy locations look fantastic as always. I love that they used the incline, which is always one of my favourite locations, and the crash and avalanche are both awesome to watch. We briefly get to see Gordon get humiliated again at the end as well. The only criticism I can think of is the title is a bit too straightforward. They couldn't have gone with Avalanche or Scarlowy and the Avalanche. Oh well. I still like the fact that the title doesn't reveal anything about the plot. The writers always seem to be good at that. Anyway, whatever order you put these two in, they end season 5, and my perfect season of Thomas and Friends on a wonderful note. If I was doing the full 28 episodes, I would go with James the Second Best, despite it being an okay episode, and Over the Hill. So now I'm going to let you guys have a go at this yourselves. You know the rules for all this. What would be your perfect series of Thomas and Friends? Let me know down in the comments, or better still, make a video about this. I'd love to see someone else do that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, cheerio.